Have you ever wondered what kind of mystic, magic art goes into deciding what chords should be played in a song? I sure have. It all seemed like such a mystery to me until I discovered the keeper of the keys. Let's talk about that a little bit more on today's weekly worship thought. If you haven't already done so, make sure that you go to my website, www.jeffpolenmusic.com, and download the Becoming a Musical Ninja worksheet. We'll be using it for the next several chapters, so take some time to work through the exercises in the worksheet. I believe that they will help you to better grasp this material and help you along the way becoming a musical ninja yourself. Now, let's talk about the keys. When I first started writing songs, I literally pulled out my origami skills and created a couple of cubes that would become my chord dice. I wrote every chord that I knew on the pair of dice, and I rolled the dice to decide what chord I would play. One of those two chords I figured would have to sound good. I'm not joking, that is a true story, and it did not sound good. I had no idea what I was doing. Songwriting to me was some sort of a magical, mystical métier. One had to be an outright master of their craft in order to put the notes and the chords in the correct order. And with so many possible combinations, how could anyone ever know anything about the mysterious nature of music? But as I continued to learn and to dig deeper into the subject, I soon realized that music is actually not very difficult. In contemporary Western music, songs are typically written in a specific key and only contain notes and chords that are a part of that key. In fact, each song essentially uses just 7 notes over and over again. 7! Now that's not such a difficult number, right? But before we talk about 7, let's go a little bit higher and talk about 12. There are essentially 12 notes in contemporary Western music. Those 12 notes then just repeat themselves over and over using higher and lower frequencies of the same basic note. The 88 keys of a piano are just these same 12 notes being used over and over again, but using a higher frequency version of the same notes from left to right. Those 12 basic notes of contemporary Western music are A sharp or B flat, B, C, C sharp or D flat, D sharp or E flat, E, F sharp or G flat, G sharp or A flat. Now you may have noticed that some of these notes have 2 names. The hashtag indicates that the note is sharp or 1/2 step higher than the note beside it. And the little B indicates that the note is flat or 1/2 step lower than the note beside it. There, that was easy, right? There are your 12 notes. So where does the 7 number come into play? Well, each key contains only 7 of these 12 possible notes. The 7 notes are set for each key, and songs rarely use notes outside of the song key. So, how do you know which 7 notes will be in the key that the song is using? There's actually a really simple formula to figure this out, and it goes like this: root, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. The key actually includes 8 notes, you may have noticed, but the 8th note is always a repeat of the first note. This is called an octave of the root note. So, let's start with the key in which the song is written, and we'll use the key of A as just an example. The note directly to the right of A is a 1/2 step away from A, but 2 1/2 steps make a whole step. So following this simple formula, the key of A would include the following 7 notes. The root note would be A. A whole step up from A, which is equivalent to 2 1/2 steps, would be B. A whole step up from B would be C sharp. Following the formula, we would take a 1/2 step next. A 1/2 step from C sharp is D. Then a whole step from D, which is E. A whole step from E, which is F sharp. A whole step from F sharp, which is G sharp. And finally, one last 1/2 step from G sharp, which brings you back to A. Well, look at that. We effectively erased 5 possible notes from the song. This formula works for any key. Let's try it in the key of C. The root note would be C. One whole step up from C would be D. One whole step up from D would be E. A 1/2 step up from E is F. A whole step up from F is G. A whole step up from G is A. A whole step up from A is B, and our last half step up from B brings you back to C. Now, once you have a grasp of which notes are a part of the key, you are well on your way to becoming a musical wizard. All right, so let's look at this concept of the key as it pertains to the acoustic guitar or electric guitar or bass guitar. It'd all be the same idea. On the guitar, every fret is just a half step. So as long as you're staying on the same string, then every step forward is a half step. With that in mind, we can easily figure out what notes are going to be in any given key. So let's start with the key of C. That's very simple. On the guitar, you've got your 5th string, which is your A string, on the 3rd fret, and that is a C. So if you can remember our formula, we're going to start with our root, which is the C. We're going to move up a whole step, which would be 2 half steps, right, to the D. We're going to move up another whole step, which is going to become the E. Half step now to the F, and then a whole step to the G, a whole step to the a whole step to the B, and then a half step to the C. And once again, the first note and the last note are always the same. They're in octaves. So if you listen, it is exactly the same note. It's just one is a whole octave higher than the other. So we've got our root, whole, half, whole, half. And we just figured out every note that is going to be in the key of C. And once you have that pattern, you can figure it out all over the guitar. So let's do the same thing, but let's use an open string. We'll use the open A now. And so your root note is going to be A. And we're going to go a whole step, which is 2 half steps. So we're going to skip over that B flat and we're going to go to the B. So A, whole step to the B, whole step to the C sharp, half step to the D, whole step to the E, whole step to the F sharp, whole step to the G sharp, and then A. And once again, A is the root and A is the last note as well. So an entire octave from one another. And so that scale, or all of the notes in the key of A, are going to be just that very thing. Root, whole, half, whole, half. Once you figure it out on one spot, it works that way on every spot on the guitar. What was one interesting truth or idea that stood out to you today? And how do you think that truth or idea will help you in the future? Was there anything confusing or too difficult to understand in this chapter? If so, what do you think you could do to learn more about it? Why do you think this information about keys is important? How does knowing about it help you? How would not knowing about it potentially lead to issues? Do you ever think about any of the key concepts that were shared in this chapter? If so, in what ways? If not, do you think these concepts just come naturally for you? Or do you think that perhaps this is an area that you really need to grow in? In your own words, how do you think this concept of musical key fits into the big picture of learning the Nashville numbers system?